Given below are the numbers of indoor movie theaters, listed in order by row for each year. Use the given data to construct a time series graph. What is the trend, and how does this trend compare to the trend for drive-in movie theaters? So the first thing we want to do is we want to be able to construct a time series graph. Now recall that a time series graph is a graph of time series data, which are data that have been collected at different points in time. So we use time for the horizontal axis and the number of indoor movie theaters for the vertical axis. So let's go ahead and open our data up in StatCrunch. So there's our first column, which is year. Our second column represents the number of indoor theaters. So we're going to open up our data in a StatCrunch. And if you notice that both of the columns are already labeled, so we don't need to do that. Okay, so now at the top, we're going to scroll to the menu option of graph and then go all the way down to scatter plot. Now remember that the x variable represents the x-axis, which is going to be the year, so we want to select the year. For the y variable, we want to select the number of indoor theaters. And now we're going to scroll down to our options to where it says display. So we want to make sure that points and lines are selected. So we want to select points and hit the control button so that lines are also selected. Now when we scroll down a little further, now we want to label our graph. So again, the x-axis is going to be labeled as the year, and the y-axis is going to be the numbers of indoor movie theaters. So indoor movie theaters. And then also we want our graph to have horizontal and vertical lines. Scroll down here, and now we're going to select compute. Okay, so now we have that. Now let's take a look at that graph and then compare it to the options that we have. So if you notice, it's going from 0 to 16, and this is going from 20,000 to 36,000. So if we want to change our scale on our graph, we can do the following. Okay, we can start here and go to x-axis, and then we can make sure that this goes to, let's say, 18, and we can start the minimum at 0. So the minimum is 0, and then the maximum is 18, and then select OK. And then for the y-axis, okay, the minimum is at 20,000, and then this is going to 36,000. So let's go ahead and change that to 37,000, and then select OK. So now we have our graph. Now let's compare them to the ones that we have. Well, we can see the first one is a downward trend, and that does not match with the graph that we have just done on StatCrunch. So we can remove that from the option. Okay, if we take a look at B, the trend goes up and then it goes all the way down, which again does not match the graph. Okay, now let's take a look at C and D. So if we take a look at C, okay, does that match our graph? So it looks like at the beginning here, looks like it's working here, and then over at 8, you can see that there is a jump, but then it goes back down. So, and then it goes back up again. So it looks like this does not match our graph. Now let's take a look at D. So if we take a look at D and compare that with our graph, we can see that this looks identical to what we just graphed. So it looks like our choice is going to be D. Check our answer, and there is our option. So now it says, what is the trend, and how does this trend compare to the trend for drive-in movie theaters? Well, if you take a look over here at this graph, this is the graph, the time series graph for a number of drive-in movie theaters. And you can see that this graph is trending downward. There's no upward in this graph. So again, confirming that, okay, looking at the time series graph, we see that our graph that we have graphed, okay, looks like the trend is going upward. So it's different than the drive-in movie theaters. So we would say that there appears to be an upward trend, unlike drive-in movie theaters, which have a downward trend. So let's go ahead and select that. and that is our result.